Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Genevieve, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Welcome back to the Living Word. I don't know about you, but I've been having so much fun with these conversations. And this is one that I have been excited to do for a long time because, as a lot of you know, I've been in the world of holistic wellness and beauty for over 12 years. And my dad was a pioneer in the industry. And so what I see now with people like you, Dr. Rachel, is that you've taken this industry to a whole new level of accessibility for people to not just utilize, but understand. And so for those of you who are joining us today, I have a beautiful friend who has blessed my life in so many ways, Dr. Rachel. And she is someone who inspires me by her conviction to really make a difference on this planet. As a business owner, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, I have watched her walk her own talk in every aspect of her life, your life. And so thank you for that. Thank you. It's so special. And you know, you're someone that has been really like debunking the world of holistic wellness for a long time. And I really respect that about you. And we are currently sitting in your clinic. Yay. This is Wellhouse. Mm-hmm. You have owned this clinic for 6 years. Mm-hmm. You are the owner and CEO. And I've never heard this story of how you got into this realm of work. Mm-hmm. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and just start sharing, like, how did you end up here?
Perfect. Well, I think the fun thing about how you said, like, debunking just like health and wellness and all those different aspects of just like what we're still trying to navigate this lifetime we have. I started out in life being like, I wanted to do something to help people. And I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. That was what I was passionate about doing, was going into medical field. And then, I was fortunate enough to be a 3-sport athlete in college, so ran all seasons, cross country, track, and then I got injured and was like, oh, physical therapy, this will be great. This is what I want to do. So I kind of switched to that mindset. And then literally the last, like, oh my gosh, you know, I think it was like weeks before I was supposed to graduate and go to PT school, I couldn't get this like hip injury figured out. And my coach sent me to a chiropractor. And I was like, why would he send me to a chiropractor? I literally don't have, because that's what I thought. It was just like headaches, low back pain. And then he taught me all about the body and the nervous system and how it heals itself. And then I literally switched like last minute. I'm like, I'm going to chiropractic. Wow. And so then I switched to chiropractic and I was like, I want to help professional athletes. And I interned with like one of the Vikings chiropractors, did all of these like 30-minute treatments, all this kind of stuff. And then truly by the grace of God, I got accidentally placed at this clinic. It wasn't called Wellhouse at the time, but got placed at this clinic and I saw these like families and kids and I heard these stories about like this little boy who was autistic and never spoke. And then once he started getting adjusted, it was speaking and talking and communicating. And I'm like, I'm switching to like families and kids and the world needs to know about these kinds of things. So like, that was just really fun to be able to like, I'm also like you, Jen, where you're like, I have this path, I have this vision, you just stick to it. And all of a sudden like, there's a wrench that gets thrown into it and you think it's like totally wrong then. And also like, no, this was the way it was supposed to be the whole time. So it's just been really fun to be able to, I feel like, experience like why you're placed here and have that change throughout your lifetime. So
I didn't know that it was all from an injury. And one of the things that I've witnessed personally coming in here is the energy of this space, but also the culture of the team. And it's interesting because right now, I'm staring at one of the pictures in here and it says there is a vast difference between treating the effects and adjusting the cause. And so maybe that's where we start a little bit because just like you said, people think that chiropractic is for like a headache or something that's wrong in the head, but it's way more than that. So what is the world of adjustments from a chiropractor?
For sure. And I think that's like the one thing too, and honestly, as chiropractors, we're really bad about this, and it's kind of sad. Like, you can do different stuff in chiropractic and that's just fine, right? Like anything in life. Like if you want to focus on sports injuries and spend 20 minutes with people, wonderful, right? The kind of chiropractic that we focus on in our clinic is like diving into the nervous system. And that's extremely extremely important to like educating my patients on that, right? And so when people come to our clinic, they already understand that to some being, like, we're not just gonna like crack you a couple times and like send you off and come back when your pain's back, right? My goal is like, okay, there's something wrong with your nervous system. There's something that's miscommunicating. Because Jen, you have obviously your brain that sits up here, right? In your head. But what happens is that every single second, your brain, your body is communicating 1 trillion times. 1 trillion times your brain and your body are connecting back and forth all day, right? So you can't tell me your body doesn't know how to heal and what to do, right? Not even for a second. I mean, I love to use the analogy too of like when you cut your finger, do you just stare at it and tell like what blood to release into clot and things like that? No, thank God we don't. Like right. It just happens. And so that's what my job as a chiropractor is to find where is that miscommunication not being connected, right? Where is our body not being allowing to adapt, heal, and like have that capabilities that it knows what to do.
Wow.
Right? And so when we adjust our patients, like we're super specific in how we adjust their nervous system. We don't just like throw in the table and like crack everything. It feels good, but it's not getting down to that root of that miscommunication throughout your body.
So when you say that the body communicates, and you mentioned something at the beginning when people come in for pain. Mm-hmm. So do you believe that chiropractic is actually a preventative measure and not meant to only be when there is an issue or problem that we're aware of?
Yeah. And you know, in a perfect world, I'd have this like wellness clinic where everyone walks in on their paperwork, they check wellness, they want to be adjusted forever in their lifetime, right? But that's not how human nature works. So I'd say 80% of the time, someone walks into our clinic and they're like, I have this problem, whether it's a headache, low back pain, digestive issues, you know, anxiety, sleep, that type of thing. That's all controlled by your nervous system. And they're like, I just need help figuring this out. And they don't even know what that means. They just kind of heard their friend that got better with maybe adjustments, understand it's a nervous system thing, stuff like that. And then my job as a chiropractor is like, I love when people say like, oh, once you go to get adjusted, you go for the rest of your life. Well, thank God you do. And thank God you know that, right? You don't just eat healthy one day and you're like, I am set for the next 50 years. Your nervous system is controlling all of that. So it's one of those things you do need to maintain and keep that well-being going, whether it's weekly, every other week, that type of thing.
And that's something that is different about your clinic, is that you have like longevity of not just patients, but families. Because you told me like the rate or how many times people come, and that was really special. Would you be open to sharing that?
Yeah, so the average like patient that like visits a chiropractor is about 11 visits. In our clinic, we're close to like 150 to like 175. That's how many adjustments they stay throughout our clinic. And the beautiful thing is like we've been at our location for 19 years. I've been here for 11 years, and like literally 25% of the patients have been here longer.
Wow.
I know, it's so fun because then I just constantly get to keep re-educating and keep trailing through that. Kids that were babies are now in middle school and graduating, and their parents understand like how important it is to help raise a healthy child, so as adults we're not fixing some of those things that we didn't really understand. Understand is probably a big word. I think 90% of us as parents are doing the best we can with the tools that we know. It's just we don't know a lot of things either.
It's interesting, and I think that just shows the ability you have to educate people. And I'll use my own adjustment last time I was here as an example. And I came in and, I had been feeling this kind of like interesting sensation in my neck, but I've been on the road a lot. I thought it was just travel related, muscular, getting a lot of massages. And when you were going over my back, you asked me like, how have you been sleeping? And all you did was like touch 3 spots on my back. And I was like, oh, I actually have some issues sleeping. And you're like, okay, do you have issues like falling asleep or is it staying asleep? And when I said falling asleep, you went right to that spot that I had been feeling in my neck. And then you had explained, I don't remember exactly what you said, but you explained a spot, how it relates to my nervous system. So could you talk a little bit about like, what is the nervous system? Let's like go back to the basics. What is the nervous system and how are you able to recognize what is maybe interrupted in the miscommunication of the body just by looking at the spine?
That's such a great question because I think that is very confusing. And that's when I first heard of the chiropractor, I was like, I don't have a headache.
Right.
And that's really like, so when it comes to your nervous system, kind of back to your question. So like I mentioned, like your brain is obviously like the control system of our body. I think we're pretty aware of that, right? When you're dead, it's not because your heart stops, because your brain stops. Your brain tells your heart what to do. And that's another big thing. Like we think of all these different organs and stuff like that, but your brain is telling your heart, your liver, your kidney, everything in your body, how to communicate and what to do.
Wow.
Then also when it comes to your nervous system, you have a couple different like categories of jobs that it does. So you have 10% of your nerves. And first of all, you have about 1 billion nerves in your body. 1 billion nerves.
That's wild.
10% of them are only for like perceiving pain. So like the headache, low back pain, tight muscles, things like that. Really? 90% of it, Jen, is for function. So think of it like hormones, liver, kidneys, eyes, cells, tissue, 90%. And when I say it like that, yeah. And when I say it like that, you're like, well, of course, I hope it's 90% that, right? And so when we adjust you, when I'm adjusting you, yes, I obviously want you to feel good in pain and things like that. But also if we could help with the sleep, the digestion, the energy, like those different categories of your body and your nervous system, that's my job, is to help your body, your nervous system function at that 100%. Because pain is just a really small factor of it. If that area of your nerves where they're communicating out of your spine, so you talked about like spine, 99% of the time your nerves get compromised in your spine because it has to go through this tiny little hole. And people also think your nerves are like stretchy, like bungee cords, but there's actually 0 tensile strength in your nerves. So you put a tiny bit of pressure on it, and it loses that ability to recognize, adapt, and heal.
Wow. Now, we hear a lot, because I believe fully that one of the biggest issues we have as a collective is our nervous system is completely out of whack. We are constantly bombarded by, all of the visuals and the media and the stress and the pressure, and that's just one area of it. So there are 2 areas that we really focus on in the nervous system, correct? There's a sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yes.
So what are the difference of the 2, and how can we, maybe for those of you who are like, wait, what's going on with my nervous system? Yeah. Like, what are some of the, like, I guess warning signs would be a good way to say it?
Yeah. And I think, maybe you can agree with this too. Like, would you say like recently, and I feel like, can see things differently because I see these trigger words, but nervous system, like sympathetic, has become like these really popular words lately, right?
Very trendy.
Yes, very trendy. And I'm kind of like, well, us as chiropractors, we've been doing this our whole entire careers, like, right? This isn't a trend. This is like what's happening.
This is real life.
This is real life, right? And Jen said these words, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So think of your sympathetic as your fight or flight. It's your gas pedal in life. It's a great tool to have, and it's very important. If you're stressed out, if you like need to activate that, wonderful, right? But then you should jump into your parasympathetic like that. Calm down. It's okay. Things are going to be fine. We're not running from bears anymore. We're not climbing trees to survive. We should be able to adapt back and forth like that. And your nervous system controls that. Our adjustments that we do, we focus on some of those areas too. Excuse me. You should be about, I think it's 92 to 95% parasympathetic in your day, and that small percent should be sympathetic.
And that's not what we're seeing.
No, not at all. And that's why, so in our practice here, we see 45% pediatrics, meaning 18 and younger kids. And sometimes all we do is just adjust parasympathetics now. Parasympathetics. Because these kids are just so stimulated with a sympathetic response. And sympathetic can be thoughts, traumas, and toxins. All those things activate your sympathetic nervous system or deactivate your parasympathetic, however you want.
It's, I'm so grateful we're talking about this because we live in a time where this like boss babe culture, and I'll talk about women right now because that's a conversation I had in an episode prior to this. We have this boss babe culture. We have, people are really like applauded when they talk about, oh, I did a 16-hour shift. Oh, I've only slept 4 hours. Like, look at me go. And it's like this competition over how much we can do. And we've become these like machines. And what's happening now is we're seeing more burnout than ever before.
Yep.
When you look at people in the eyes, you can see when the lights aren't on. And I feel that people are not living, they are merely surviving. And so when we have, like, I definitely had a big burnout. And I knew my nervous system and my adrenals were totally shot because I was only capable to function based on uppers. And I would push through it, and it was exactly what you said, the thoughts and everything. It was just about survival to prove that I was good enough. So when someone has that experience like myself, I know everybody is different, but how long does it take to kind of bring some of that balance back into the nervous system? And actually, we'll stop there for a moment. Like, how long does that usually take?
And that is $1 million question, right? Because it kind of has to go back to like, what are you going to address and what are you going to focus on? Whether it's thoughts, traumas, or toxins. Like, what is that piece of your body that's not regulating as it is? And it's not as simple as like, I'm just going to take a deep breath today and like go back to sleep and figure it out. Because I think your nervous system, as adaptable as it is, it's also so sensitive too, right? And so I think it's about really identifying like, what is that true trigger for you? And I don't think you can usually do that by yourself. I feel like it comes to like finding a team, a coach, a chiropractor, someone that can help like dive into like figuring out what that is too.
That's a really great response. And one of the things that I noticed, and you probably talk about this all the time, is when I started regulating my nervous system, and you're right, it took me having a really full toolbox in order to continually self-adjust.
Yeah.
And what I found was that the moment I started feeling tired, I would think it was a bad thing. But really, it was just my body trying to relax and go back into this place of rest. So do you find that some of the shifts that happen in the body and the mind are really difficult for people to integrate because they're used to just going full speed all the time?
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to your point earlier about like, it's almost, you feel like you're failing if you have to pause, or feel like you're failing if you just need to like take a break for a second. And sometimes like us as like healing professionals are almost our worst enemy at that. For instance, like female chiropractors after 5 years, just right now there's only 28% of us practicing.
Wow.
Yes. Because we don't know how to balance being a mom, running a schedule, taking care of ourselves. And so we just say, after 8 years of school and $200,000, we're just going to call it quits.
So what is one of your life hacks for finding that balance? Because you do, and I've seen that with you, you have great boundaries. You know, we were talking this morning on the way here about just how we have a standard of like things like the water that we're putting into our body, the rest that we're having. So if you were to give a couple of your own personal life hacks, what are some of the things that are non-negotiables for you to keep a balance and run a thriving practice?
Yeah. And I think it also goes back to like kind of the beginning too, and Jen, you know this, like we are workhorses, right? And I'm saying you do need to work hard in the beginning, right? Like you need to like give it your all. And I think that's sometimes a misconception too, is like, it's just going to happen. And I'm like not saying that, but it's about like working hard and then being able to like enjoy that life that you've created, right? Like, yes, it might take a couple 6 months, years to build something, but then it's about like finding that platform of like, what does this ideal situation look like now, right? Because right when I opened the practice, it was super stressful. It was a lot. My biggest thing probably though was finding a coach, so a leader that helped me, that they're helping me with my business, right? So if you need your help with your health, find a health person. And then my second greatest thing was creating my team, my clinic team, and then like between my husband and I too. Like we need to be a team of like what's happening, right? Because there's a time in our life where that wasn't great for us either, right? And then we had to sit down and be like, what do we need to do to fix that? And I think it really comes down to like, you need those support people in your life to be massive for you, to coach you, to guide you.
I couldn't agree with you more. We are collaboration is the greatest currency, and I believe exactly what you said. If you want to go to the next level, then what is it that is required to support you?
Right.
I've been on the road for 12 weeks now, officially today, and been all over Mexico, Canada, and United States. And people have asked me constantly, like, how do you do it? How are you not exhausted? And I said, the level of output of performance now, I meet or exceed it with what I do for self-care.
Right.
And I believe that that's the only way. And even when I came in for an adjustment with you, my sleep has improved, I would say like 30% since that one adjustment. And so I'm just grateful for that wisdom. I'm grateful for how you show up in business, in your personal life, and as a mom, I learned so much from you. And if you had one word of wisdom to share with everyone today about the nervous system and just about really going inwards and learning about yourself, because we're so disconnected from our body. We live in the mind, we live in the future, which causes anxiety, or in the past, which causes depression. So what would be one piece of advice or two that you would give to people to just give them permission to be human?
I think that's a good question. I also love that the word that sympathetic and parasympathetic are trendy right now, because it shouldn't be trendy. It should be our basic common knowledge of how to regulate our body and regulate our nervous system. So I think a simple thing for people to do is just start like doing your research. I love just being like, get on the internet and find things yourself. Like find all the avenues, do the digging, find all these different stuff and figure out what that sympathetic and parasympathetic means for you. Because it's so many vast things. If it's thoughts, traumas, toxins, right? I mean, we can spend days talking about those 3 different avenues of stress. But it's just about identifying and understanding what they mean and what they can do to your nervous system and your body. Because there's so many tools you can do at your home that can create so many different great pathways to help changing that too. Knowledge is very powerful for those different categories.
I think that's so brilliant. If you're in the Minneapolis area and even just Minnesota in general, it is worth the drive to come to Wellhouse and see this team. It's my favorite place. I will put all of the information about the business in the show notes and how to contact Dr. Rachel. She has some very exciting things coming down the pipeline if you want to work with her even virtually. So please follow her, follow Wellhouse, see what they're all about, get part of this community because it is one that will leave you feeling different than you were before. Dr. Rachel, thank you so much. So much. You guys, she's going to be back on the podcast a few times because this woman is literally a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Love you too. Oh.
Dr. Rachel and I have a special gift for all of you listeners of the Living Word. 5 ways to hack your nervous system. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes and get your free downloadable tool. Enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. And make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.